What's good with the YouTube? You already know, Big Flaco with a convict's perspective, and I'm gonna smash, dash, and slide on through. A little bit of energy. Please hit the like, subscribe, comment, do all those things to help support this channel, and hit that bell notification for future fire content. So what I'm gonna do today for you guys, man, is I think this is real important for you guys to get a more in depth look at where I come from and why I'm the way I am at times. So we'll start off. I was born in 1977 in December. Kaiser Hospital right there in Hayward, California, on Tennyson Road. It was on the south side of Hayward. My mom was she grew up in a military family in the Coast Guard. She was the youngest Italian family, basically Catholic and all that stuff, man. But she's always had a mouthpiece, and she was the youngest one, so she was always kind of rebellious in a certain sense, but still was knew what she was doing. My dad came from down south. I'm talking about the southern states. And he grew up, his mom was Native American. She had him when she was like, I think 16. And he had a dad that had polio. So had real skinny legs and was on crutches. Because they didn't have no really cure at the time, or they didn't really have the vaccine wasn't being given, especially if you were poor. So a lot of times growing up, being that he was the oldest, he had two younger brothers. And the dad was left on his own. He was alcoholic and whatnot, abusive. My dad had to go through a lot of shit. And what I'm saying? It was just the way they lived. You want to talk about poor, they were poor. I've seen where he grew up and stuff. It was pretty bad. So he moved to California because he had an uncle out here and different change of environment. My dad was really rebellious. I don't know how he didn't end up in prison. He fucked with everybody. You know what I'm saying? Every single buddy. Later on in his life, he started to fuck around with a lot of people that were more, let's just say, organized. Okay? On the car dealerships in Santa Clara, Stevens Creek. Okay. So, I had an older sister, I had a younger brother. Okay. So I was always kind of in the middle, and my sister was about 7 years older, so there was no really, close. We were close, but it was kind of weird for being the age gap. We were close. She used to take me places and stuff like that, man. And my brother was younger, but I kind of was more separated. I think there was a little bit of more animosity because when it came to the household, my brother got everything from my dad. You know what I'm saying? And I used to be like a little kid, just sitting there waiting for him to come home and shit. And man, and you know what I'm saying? And just right there in the front. There's a couple things that people knew about me when I was little. Popeye and Star Wars. Those were my things, right? And he would just come and rub my head or whatever, and he didn't take off. You know what I'm saying? But when it came to my brother, it was a whole different type of energy. So, like anything, I went into, try to do the normal things kids do. I was in T-ball. And so since I really didn't have a father figure that was really active, because I was kind of ignored, I wasn't too athletic or anything at that time. So like I started running, I'd run fucking hella funny and shit, almost like a fucking girl, I have tapes, it's fucking funny. So I think a week later I was in Taekwondo. Okay. And from there I started doing all the, I was more into Taekwondo and everybody else was on their own trip. And I used to, I was on the West Coast demo team. I used to fight in tournaments and all that stuff at a young age. You got to remember, this was 6 years old. But then, things started to change, right? My sister did her thing. My brother, we were not close really too much, but he used to kind of look up to me later. But I had to kind of pioneer my own path, and, at home, it was just kind of different. Like, my mom was she was a good mom, but she worked hard. And she was abused as well in the household. There was a lot of verbal abuse, physical abuse, and that's just how life is sometimes growing up. Different time era, I don't fall anything because we only do the best that we can. You know what I'm saying? And but for a minute, I was a real timid child, man. I used to think a lot, think a little too much. And back then you didn't have no therapy or counseling, and you were told you were told not to repeat what happens at home. There's some other things that happened that I don't really remember, but I've heard bits and pieces that I've said things when I was little, and I don't really remember, to be honest with you. So from there, growing up, I've seen crazy things. I've seen my dad pull out guns, shoot them off in the house, break shit, just fucking learn behavior. Stuff that I kind of later on would do as well. I seen cops go in our backyard with a dog. My dad opened the door and fucking pull out a shotgun and go. That's just how he was back then. And he was kind of out there. He had his own bike shop. He did a lot of things when they were younger. They were investigated by the feds. He was able to weasel through. Later on, he became the general manager of Stevens Creek European. And so sometimes he'd come home with the demos, the Countachs and all that, man. And, you know, I remember this as a kid. He'd come home with suitcases of money, right? And this is in the 80s. And anybody knows Stevens Creek European, he was the general manager that was owned by some, I believe, Assyrians, right? No, not Assyrians, Armenians. And they were close with my dad, and my dad just was a big guy, carried guns, and he wouldn't take shit from nobody. You'd have different fucking football players, actors, and all that would go into that car lot because there was only two places in the whole West Coast that had European cars. They had the Ferraris, the Countachs, and all that. And he was the manager there. So he'd bring home the demo sometimes, and and he'd bring home a suitcase. He'd have his gun on him. And I never really figured out what was going on until later. Was they would deal with a lot of people that were in the mix, and a lot of times that money can't be shown where it comes from. So these guys would lease cars for 3 months at a time and do their thing. There's a lot more stuff, but last time I put this out there, he kind of was like, he was kind of didn't want me to put out as much information. So I witnessed that. And at a young age, we didn't know. I mean, I heard different conversations about how they were asking people that looked like, my dad and other people that were just rather men to fly out to different areas to move shit around. And I remember he used to fly to Oklahoma all the time. So I don't know the exact extent of what he was doing. He ain't gonna tell me until he's about dead, then he'll say something. But I know they were leasing cars to some heavy hitters out there at the time. And this was during the crack era when it blown up. So, I kept him doing my thing, and, he was very aggressive. I think they were doing coke over there on the lot, of course. You know what I'm saying? And, I just started gravitating towards different people. It was in skateboarding, then BMX. And then Colors came out around that time, man. It's like everybody that we stopped putting the bikes and skateboards down, and we wanted to fucking now be gangsters. You know what I'm saying? So I used to get in trouble all the time. I used to go to school and I'd act out, and I'd be scared when I got home because I knew my dad was gonna whip my ass or something. But it just would happen all the time, and I don't know. I had a lot of anger built up at that time. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? So having that much anger built up, I would not have no outlet to take it out. And I was hanging out with kids that were older than me. I was in like third grade, running around the streets with people that were seventh grade, fourth grade, and I'd stay at my friend's pad that their parents were deaf, and we just ran them up. And so I was already hanging out with older kids, that were 3 years older than me, right? Running the streets. I mean, we'd go to the AMC Town Center, hang out, we'd fucking ride our skateboards, and it'd be fucking all different races. My black homeboy Imani, fucking Rolando he's out there Sunny Hills, fucking Marcos, Leon Bowler. You know what I mean? These are all cats I grew up with. I was always starting to go to juvenile hall too and getting arrested. And my first time being arrested, I think I was 9 or 10. I was still in the car hood ornaments. You know what I'm saying? Like the Mercedes Benz, we thought we were cool, tearing them off the cars, and we got caught trying to take a Chrysler, man. And we ran under the freeway, and it was fucking sewer, and it was fucking this high, and we got stuck. And the dude got us, man. Just kids, hey. So, but I thought I was cool. You know what I'm saying? And I wanted to be that dude. You know what I'm saying? So I used to start hanging out with people as I went, and I really didn't bang nothing yet. But I dressed the derby jackets, the fucking hats, and fucking wear them all like gangster and all that, man. And the schools I went to, I think the school I went to was the poorest school in the city, which was mainly where all the Mexicans, blacks, and all those were at. You know what I'm saying? The more Selwyn, Dipsy, Shirley Drive. So I grew up in that neighborhood around everybody. And see, at that time, Milpas was interesting because you could be walking through a little neighborhood with older houses, and they'd have new houses built in between. So it was a trip, right? And I started trying to gangbang a little bit, man. I'm saying that I used to fight all the time. You know what I'm saying? All the time. And I think my first fucking major fight was one kid from one school and me. We met up and shit. And it was kind of, he kind of got me. He was kind of weak though. He's a good dude though, man. It was a weak fight, but we were like 12 years old and shit. And the junior high kids were pumping us up. So, junior high changed everything, man. Now you're hunting at females, and at that time, I had a lot of females I used to know back then and hang out with and stuff, right? But I was just that, okay, there goes, what's his name? You know what I'm saying? A lot of people refer to me as a different name. And so by the time I was in 8th grade, things started changing a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I was never no punk. I was just there. I was cool, popular, and all that, man. Some girls liked him, some didn't. You know what I'm saying? And I got in a big fight. And a lot of people gave me my respect for this fight because I was about 13, he was 15, and we had a little gang at our junior high. It was called Die Hard Children's. We were just, you know what I mean? It was just a fucking joke kind of thing, but it was almost the whole school. And for me and the two brothers, man, Kareem and Jossie, right? They're tall just like me too, but they were like 15 and 14 at the time. They wanted us to jump this one dude that was first he was from Alviso, then he was from Eastside San Jose, some cat named David Brown, right? Who used to always try to fuck with me, like, you know what I mean? And he looked kind of intimidating a little bit. I'm little, his brothers did as well. And so I'm like, all right, fuck it. We jumped and playing around, like boom, boom, boom. It's like a play around jumping. It's not serious. We used to have initiations where we used to run up on people and just sock you up. And if you were like in 6th grade, 7th grade, you were gonna get initiated. Same thing, as it kept on going. So we jumped him. It wasn't even that bad. You know what I'm saying? It was just like bing, bing, bing. Guess who we wanted to fight out? Everybody? Me. So when I go to the park right there, Murphy Park, everybody's there, but nobody's really fucking backing me up, man. So he comes, and he's like about 15. He's about 6'2" at the time. I'm about fucking maybe 5'8". You know what I'm saying? So as he's coming to me, I just jump up and I hit him. Bah! And when I hit him, he didn't expect it to come. And I grabbed him by his fucking hood of his sweatshirt. Bam! I threw him down. I jumped on top of him. I just started banking on him. Bang, bang, bang. Junior high fight. After I hit him about like 15, 20 times, he was covering up. I got up. And when I got up, man, he came from behind. He hit me with a fucking hammer. Twice in the back of the head, I got stabbed. You know what I'm saying? And blood was everywhere. I mean, this is probably like 1990. And there were some Crips there. They were from Family Crip and YGC Crips. It was Antone and some other cat, man, that they didn't like what they seen. So they started chasing after the dude because he pulled out the fucking thing because I whooped his ass. And, here comes my family, of course, and shit, take me to the hospital, get patched up. Now, my dad's old school. He calls their family. He wanted to make sure this wasn't going to escalate. So we went over there, and he's talking about, I hit a tree. I'm like, whatever. And my dad told him, well, okay, if there's an issue, you guys can go in the backyard and box. You know what I'm saying? And later on, both those dudes, they thought they were so cool back then. They weren't shit later on in life, as far as his brothers, too, as well. So, got stabbed at 13. You know what I'm saying? Got numerous other fights. Got expelled from junior high we were getting into a fight with Lee Madison at school on the east side during a basketball game. Me and Joe Collins, rest in peace. You know what I'm saying? No, Joe Collins ain't. Is Joe Collins dead? No, Joe Collins ain't dead. I don't think so. But yeah, me and Joe Collins, I think it was. So anyways, we got kicked out of school. I get kicked out. Went to my expulsion. Now at that time, all the people I was kicking it with, a lot of them were fucking. I used to kick with a lot of Africanos, right? But they were also Mexicans and all that. My town did not have many white people, believe it or not. Very few. And if they were rocking one way or the other. So by 9th grade, when we're going to junior high, that's when we started to fucking kind of kick it a little bit. Me and all the homeboys that would be future homeboys. We started dressing like cholos. And I remember our fucking first freshman year, we had like one little trip we all kicked it at. You know what I'm saying? It'd be about like 10, 11 of us, sometimes more. And then we started getting into some issues and shit because I remember when the homeboy Lubick pushed over a Samoan cat. You know what I'm saying? A big old Samoan, like 6'5". The homeboys were getting down like this. They were squatting over. They pushed him over. It was actually him and the Sureño, Popo from Saho. Because we weren't really playing that shit. So if you came, you weren't going to bang Sud. Either you rock with us or not. And then you had a little bit of older cats and shit. More brown priders. And then next you know, you started seeing homeboys. And that's when you started seeing the creation of what you would know as Vadio Maschingo and BMC. Now, BMC was more my age. They were either my age or a year older or a year younger. Everybody that was from VMLs was no longer going to Milpas High. They weren't going to school. They were all about 3-4 years older than me. But we lived right there in their neighborhood. Now, before VMC started, they used to kick it with all the homeboys. Like, we had Kickback and all the ones that started it, they used to be cool. And so they wanted them to be second generation. So a lot of you guys know about VMC, but at one time they were going to be a generation of VMLs at one time. But fucking the one that said no was the one that started the machine going, and that's where the conflict started to occur. There was just a few of them that wanted to, and so the homeboys were bad about that. Big old fight almost happened where fucking the leader that started that gang pulled out a knife. Rest in peace to him. You know what I'm saying? I ended up dating his baby mama and wife later on. You know what I'm saying? And he was a good dude. I knew him from junior high and shit. But the homeboys kind of were a little bit older, so they were kind of a little bit scared. Eventually, they get older, and we're all men, right? So that's how that started, and the homeboys that were older were pushing that agenda. So these dudes in school automatically didn't like me because I was part of this hood. And at that time, a lot of them did not want to see this hood. The only one that really was down with it at that time was Negro. Negro from VMC was with it. Art. Other than that, nobody was really tripping off then. And so we're observing this, and we're fucking like, we're thinking about starting a hood called Vital Spring Valley, and we're starting to wear red now because all the homeboys are right there on the block. Now, if you ever went to our neighborhood back in like 91, 92, you would see a bunch of homeboys walking everywhere. Anybody will tell you that if they've really been to our neighborhood. You see like homeboys with red banos, fucking like this, all pachuco down, and you couldn't walk through the neighborhood without getting hit up. And there was about 2 homeboys that would go tagging everywhere. Everywhere, the whole neighborhood would be tagged. We came out, I think it was the Mercury News, like in 92, for the gang activity that was going on over there. And it was like, I think the article was 10 gangs. Milpas now has 10 gangs, and like we were the one that they were recognizing. Because at that time you had VMC, VMLs. VMC, only 3 or 4 of them used to claim Milpas, but VMC started Milpas basically. Okay, then you'd have CAL, which was criminals at large, which were like, they were like not Bloods, but they were hooked up with MD Hood. And they were with it. 3L was with it. I mean, early years, they went at it with a lot of my homeboys and shit at one time. And I mean, things changed later on to where the homeboys became the more, bigger faction out there. But there was a lot more respect later on. Back then, we used to set trip. You know what I'm saying? Norteños and brothers in my town did not get along. You couldn't be black walking through the neighborhood. And that's just how it was back then. Because everybody was naive and blind to things. You didn't see really too many Sureños. They came through our hood one time, some cat spooky from MVS spray painted on the Impala and all kinds of shit. But other than that, you would never see them walking through the hood. And we're going to school, we're doing our thing. Our sophomore year, things changed. We took over a different spot, and so everybody that was kicking it with us were either future dudes that were getting in VMLs or dudes that sympathized with us. So there was 1, 3, let me see, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There was about 12 of us that were my age bracket. And then there was about another 15, 20 that were about maybe a little bit more than that actually, but that really stayed strong was about 15, 20 of the older cats. So we were about like 30 deep out there in the streets. But we had more heads, but those were the ones that were representing it and living in the hood. And so, with that, things came, getting shot at, fighting. One of the things that kicked off the thing with fucking Machine Gun was what happened back in junior high. Not high school. So I almost got into these cats a couple times, man. Everybody used to know this. I wouldn't bow down to nobody. I'd be the little motherfucker like, fucking let's fight. And so there was a cat there that we worked together before, we were cool, right? And but then he got into that hood, so there was kind of tension based upon that because I almost got into it with him over there because he said something about Milpas, right? So my homeboys went up there, right? Homeboy Chuco. They're right. The homeboy Boo Boo's Pat, who used to live right there in Arizona. They spray painted VMLs. They put fuck Alviso. They put fuck VHS. No, fuck VSH. Excuse me. Fuck, which is Vital Sunny Hills. Fuck VMC. And they put fuck all of these different hoods, man. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm the only one there now that's from that barrio that's there, and they're all there. So I'm on house arrest. Next thing you know, the whole school comes, right? And when they come, I'm with like 2 homeboys, right? But they're not involved in it, but they kicked through this. They fucking just dispersed from me. And I'm like, fuck. I remember from there it was Angel, fucking Pat, fucking Israel, Joe Cisneros, and Yogi. Ogre. And they pulled me aside. Now back then they were young, but I know every time that the homeboys just run up, they kind of just they didn't want it with the homeboys. You know what I'm saying? They didn't want it back then, but they wanted it with me because it was like a target they could get. So I was there, and I was like, man, I'm on probation. I'll call everybody up and have them come down. They didn't want to do that. He said, well, homeboy wants to fight you right now. And homeboy looked at me. One of the dudes said, what, you ain't down for your shit? I said, fuck yeah, fuck VMC. Bam! Homeboy hit me. Boom. I lost. You know what I'm saying? I lost. I got hit. And he put hands on me real quick. I didn't see it coming. I didn't see the hit coming, but I should have been ready, man. But I was more fucking worried about everything that was going on around me. And at the same time, the household, things were going on in the household, the same things. Abuse. My dad was wilding out. They were going through a divorce. He moved out. I didn't have a relationship with my dad. And that's just the truth of it. So I found a different outlet, joining gangs. You know what I'm saying? So that happened. And at that time, we were going back and forth, partying on Arizona. We get into different fights. We got to San Jose, getting in fights, and Fremont, and just fights, stabbing, shootings. You know what I mean? And remember we had a shot out Visa one time because the next door neighbors got dropped off by them. Shit, they started calling us meatballs. So we came up the house. This was like in like 93. Shit. I got shot in my leg one night by some fucking Filipino Crips. Because I used to trip off the red right there on Calaveras. And my first controlling case was for where I went to juvenile hall. We rushed this neighborhood called Triple S that was from San Jose, but they lived in our neighborhood. Dude named Sniper was like their leader. The dude Sniper told on us. I'm 15 years old. This dude's telling on us. You know what I'm saying? I got probation for that. Anyways, so that kicked off, right? So in front of the school, and I'm like, fuck, I was beat up pretty bad, man. And I remember it was fucking homeboy Leonard from Capitol Park, Joker. But he was also from our hood. He banged Milpas too. He came down, he's like, fuck. He goes, I'll be there tomorrow, bro. I'm like, all right. Leonard's a big dude. You figure he was about 6'2", like 260. You know what I'm saying? He was a big Nico Darwin. He was big. And other homeboys supposed to come. The homeboy that did all the fucking cross out never came. But every one of my homeboys, right, that was my age, fucking Lubick was going to school at Overfelt. No, Independence. Chode was going to school at Overfelt. They took the bus, cut school. Fucking Puppet, fucking Robert, Alex, even the ones that I didn't expect, they showed up. And so we went to the back of the school, and we're like, all right, we sent Chode and Chode House and the homeboy Rascal to the front, tell them dudes to come to the back. They didn't want to come to the back. They jumped on their buses. So they all lived on one particular side of Milpas, which was more by where OK Mart was at. So we get on the bus, as we're on the bus, guess who gets on? That dude that told me what you ain't down for your shit. So on the bus, they're talking shit to him, man. You know what I'm saying? Level off, fucking bitch, punk. We're gonna fuck you up. And homeboy Leonard wanted me to fight dude, but I was banged up from the day before. I had a black eye. I wasn't feeling it. So he kind of got mad at me afterwards, but he kind of understood I couldn't do it. So we got off the bus. There's a bunch of us. And then we say, get off the bus. And fucking boom, homeboy Rascal put hands on homeboy real quick, kicked him in the back of the head, spat on him, said, I want Angel next. So that's the dude that we wanted because he was running his mouth the most. And see, back then it was just going back and forth, So we had one individual that in my hood, he's kind of, I'm not going to call him a legend, but he's well respected, man. One of the guys homeboys I personally knew was a close friend of mine, Armando, little man. He just got back from Mexico City. Now, a lot of the homeboys looked up to him. You know what I'm saying? He taught the homeboys a lot about as far as fucking how to get busy. Like we weren't allowed to run. If it was 10 of them, we had funk, and there's only 3 of us, we're rushing you with 3. You know what I'm saying? If there's 7 of us and we see 3 of you, we're to get you with all 7. That's just how it was, but we couldn't hesitate. So, damn, I need some to drink real quick. So, we go. You gotta remember, this is the dude that fucked me up. In front, you know what I mean? Now, guess who we see when we're right there on the other side of town? He's walking down the street with his old lady. That dude. We're 11 deep. Homeboy's been talking shit. Let them fight. They started fighting and they fought good. And Rascal kind of tripped and he fell. The dude tried to kick him from behind his head, and then homeboy Victor came and Victor was like 18. He looked like he was like fucking like in his 30s with a bro shot like that. Just fucking threw that dude across the thing, and we just all stomped him out. Like literally stomped him out. Like he was bad. It was bad. And they even tried to send someone over when they seen him. Some other dudes came, and when they seen it was us, they were like, "Oh shit!" We went all the way up to the fucking movie theater, and they checked him inside the movie theater. So we left. And that's the time when homeboy was staying over there in McLaughlin. And so when we got to McLaughlin, we weren't tripping off it. We were partying. I mean, we used to have homeboys from like ESF, homeboy fucking Chemo from Montalban. I seen him over there at our homeboys pad. Wedo from Montalban, we did tats. All kinds of cats would go there from Song. And next thing you know, they have a warrant for fucking both homeboys. So the dude that we jumped got pulled over going in our neighborhood with his older brother and pretty much fucking told the cops who did it to him. You know what I'm saying? Later on, he testified when Sargon went to court, and even his own hood knows that. Those are facts. Anyways, like I said, back then, though, I found an outlet. I would drink a lot. I started experimenting with drugs. I had one lady that was out there off Sanborn from the West Side mob area. Life was what it was. I went to Independence. I went to San Jose Community. Got kicked out of San Jose Independence for fucking fighting a CWA cat. I got kicked out of Overfelt. We got off with some Sureños. I got kicked out of fucking San Jose Community with fucking Scooby from King City. And what's his name? Travieso from M Street. And another cat from BMLs for smoking weed in the bathroom. And so that's when I started meeting a lot of people. It was juvenile hall in the schools I went to. So I started hanging out San Jose a lot and doing my thing, man. And as a kid, man, like I didn't really have anybody to guide me which way, so I just always wanted to fit in. And I was never no punk, like I said right. I was down, but not like I was still growing into it. You know what I'm saying? But I've been fighting all my life. But the caliber of people I was fighting were just like schoolyard fights. Now it's a whole gangbanging with older grown men. It became different. It was totally different than me going to go fight in a competition to where, everything's just is a strategy. Everything in this fucking life was about getting off first. You know what I'm saying? Was mandatory. I did everything that you could typically think of, went to the fairgrounds, fucking driving movie theaters, and, the flea market was a good place to get into too with some Sureños. We do all that stuff, man. Still car stereos back in the days, fucking do beer runs, then eventually I started doing fucking 211s, you know what I'm saying, where we started robbing stores. At a young age, I was doing licks with Guetes, and we used to rob the stores early in the morning on Fridays because back then we'd go into certain neighborhoods because was mainly bices the ones that would cash checks. So they would have money for Fridays for the bices that were getting off work to cash their checks because they couldn't go to banks. So we'd be doing robberies at like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. Fucking, I got some funny stories. Me trying to jump over the counter, slipping and falling on my ass and shit going all over the place, and did a lot of dumb stuff, man. And this is on the verge of becoming who I became. I think when I went to the ranch the last time, juvenile hall, I started getting more fights. You know what I'm saying? With people from San Jose, with Sureños, Norteños, and I had a lot to prove when I was in there. You know what I'm saying? And it's the same thing my whole life. I was never recognized at home. I was an invisible child. So that's how I felt inside. And I always wanted to just be away from my family. I didn't want to be around my family. I blocked out a lot. I don't know everything. And so, at that time, I went to the ranch, and I would have little episodes of like an impulse control disorder where I flip out. And I always had that on the streets, and I think it was a learned behavior, but they had diagnosed me with impulse control disorder, which means I act on impulse. If I'm fucking mad, I just go. And that would make me survive a lot of situations, but it would also make me ruin friendships because I could feel you disrespect me. I'm taking flight on you on the spot. And that's how it used to be. And I used to get into fights all the time. I'm going to wait to do the second part of the story. when I got out for the county. We'll talk about how I ran from the boys' ranch, but when I was there, I fought all kinds of. I fought Dreamer from SSP. I fought Chemo from VCT. I fought some Sudanio from LA. Then Smiley from SSP. So I was getting into it with all kinds of cats, man. And you know, it was. I started learning at that point that just because you were from a big barrio doesn't mean that you always had heart. Because some of the dudes that were some of the downest homeboys I met were homeboys that were from those big barrios. Like I was in the boys' ranch with fucking, let me see, Happy fucking Mendez, you know, big, you know, him fucking what's his name, Robert Perez, Happy from fucking LNLs, and you know all kinds of cats from the park, from you know Justin Cavagna from VSJ, Short Day Gene Sanchez. Me and him were cool in the boys' ranch. I ran with Rocky from Capitol Park, David Delgado. Was cool with Bart. So I knew a lot of people, you know, from all these different hoods, man. We used to go on our OTs. Where do you think we were at? Motherfucker, we had our weekend pass. We were right there on Santa Clara Street. Grew up out there, man, 16, 17, not coming home till like 4 in the morning. You know, or just passing out wherever I was, you know. 16 years old, I was running away too as well. I was living on the streets. So I would either stay at a friend's house or live on the side of the freeway. You know what I'm saying? A couple times I stayed in where the youngsters, there was a hood out there in Milpas. They were like from like, this is real talk, guys. They're between the ages of like 8 and 11, even 7. They call themselves LMV, Little Milpas Vatos. They were all the ones that were in the neighborhood. The De La Cruzes, Andrades, and all them. There was a bunch of them, man. And they were all going to be future home from our generation. And so, yeah, I was doing that, you know, getting females. And then I knew Bices. So the Bices would buy the beer because I had the females with me. And, you know, we were just doing our thing, go to Eastridge. And just life wasn't about going to school. It wasn't about being with family. This was my family. Even though most of these people had families they went home to, you know. But so a lot of them didn't either, you know. Anyways, I'm going to end it here for the first part. I hope you guys enjoy it. It's a little something different, man. I'm going to explain a little bit more about my life. I'm going to try to go in more details, man. So if you have any questions, ask, and I'll try to fill them in. With that said, I'm gone.